Good evening. My name is Odie Hawkins, and once again we're having a little reading we call A Moment in Time. Periodically I feel compelled to give a little shout out to a woman who did something in my life that helped me over a lot of emotional, literary hurdles, I guess I could say. Her name was Dr. Margaret Burroughs, and like I say, periodically I feel compelled to speak out about her. She was a wonderful teacher, and that brings to my mind what it is that's happening these days with so many teachers being killed as well as students in classrooms. Fortunately, during the time period that I'm talking about, teachers did not have to defend their students from mad white boys with AR-15s, not at DuSable High School, which was an all-black high school in Chicago. A lot of people a few people, I'll put it that way, a few people can point directly at some person who was so influential in their lives that they simply turn their lives around. I'm being redundant, but sometimes in talking about Dr. Burroughs, I'm forced to be that way. She was a force. She was a force in Chicago. We're talking about the year of the 50s. I went to high school in 1952, 56, and during that period of time, Dr. Burroughs was struggling to put something together called the DuSable Museum of African American History. She finally succeeded. It took her, I think, something like 10 years or so, but the museum came to be. It's right there on 56th and Cottage Grove Avenue. Walk into the park, Washington Park, and there it is. It's a magnificent structure, and I think it's a fitting tribute to her sense of purpose and to her aguantar, because she had to stick it out. I've written this piece about what it was like to be in her classroom and how it is that she was instrumental in starting me off into a writing life. So, as my friend Jean Boland used to say at Inner City Performing Arts Center, let us begin. Chicago has 4 distinct sides: the north side, the south side, the west side, and Lake Michigan East. Each section has a slum ghetto. Way back in 1937, when I was born in the west side slum ghetto. Let me explain slum ghetto, because somebody said, wait a minute, see, there's a slum in the ghetto. Here's the way it operates. You can live in a slum that may not necessarily be a ghetto. You can live in a ghetto that may not necessarily be a slum. A ghetto is where some people are forced to live. That's a ghetto. A slum is a place that can start off being a very nice neighborhood and become a slum. So when you combine them together, believe me, living in a slum ghetto is just about double what either one of them can be by itself. Slum ghetto. Jewtown, so-called by the Jewish merchants who did their business there. And I survived at one point or another in the other slum ghettos. We moved a lot. Around about the time I was 6 or 7, it seemed that something woke up in me that alerted me to the fact that life was not sweet and juicy, that it was mostly the opposite. I will never be able to identify what it was that stirred this feeling around, and maybe it was when I first realized I didn't own a coat that really kept me warm in the winter. And as everybody knows, it can get very cold in Chicago. I was 8 when my daddy was sentenced to do 3 to 5 in Statesville Penitentiary, Joliet, Illinois. I wouldn't see him unbarred again until I was 13. My daddy. Fathers make you do. Daddies let you do. I'm your daddy. That was his distinction. A proud black petty criminal that turned down the opportunity to be freed after serving 3 years and put on parole for another 2 years. I don't want to be reporting to some white man every week for 2 years. So the system accommodated him by retaining him for 2 more years and a bonus 8 months. 5 years and 8 months for a $10 stick up. For a $10 stick up.
That's funny. Mm-hmm.
It was unfair, but I didn't recognize unfair at the time. It was just what it was. Yeah, I was about 8 when life suddenly seemed to become really real for me. My mama was out in the streets while Daddy was doing his time. I don't think it would have mattered much if he had been out of the slams and she hadn't been out of the streets, because they weren't really together when they were together. Later, after I studied this stuff closely, I came to the conclusion they'd always been a feral relationship. She was 16 and he was 18 when they got married. I copied the City Hall's contract. She was one of the displaced persons who had been terrorized out of Helena, Arkansas by the local racists. Ditto for Daddy's family out of Yazoo City, Mississippi. They had me out of sexual passion, and my sister too, and didn't want to be married. Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have seen that. Who wants to have their street time cut off by midnight feedings? For years after Daddy served his time, I could count on seeing him whenever he felt like seeing my mama. Yeah, it was feral. Whenever they got together, they were always physically fighting or doing this nude wrestling thing that I witnessed as often as I saw him. And then he'd be off again. That we would be left in some dark, dank hole in the wall, waiting for Mama to come back with something to eat. Or we would be stashed with a relative somewhere. Through it all, from kindergarten onward, I was sent to school, child care for the needy. I actually went to 17 grammar schools. 17. I used to be able to remember their names in chronological order, but I'm jumping a little bit ahead of myself. From one slum ghetto to another slum ghetto, that was the pattern. We never questioned why this was happening. We just went along with the program. One of the most vivid memories I have of the places we survived in and out of was our 3 or 4 years in Aunt Mary's basement, 1150 West Washburn, right on the fringe of Jewtown, Maxwell and Halsted Streets. I still have no idea why we wind up living in this spot for so long. Maybe it has something to do with Aunt Mary being my daddy's oldest sister. Children didn't question adults about anything back then. Aunt Mary's basement was warm. There was a pot-bellied coal stove in the all-purpose kitchen area, which was converted to a gambling casino, craps on Friday and Saturday. And until Aunt Mary went to Reverend A.T. Tilley's Sunrise Baptist Church, a few doors east of us on Sunday morning. And full of rats. Full of rats. The rats outnumbered us by the thousands. In the winter, seeking mammal warmth, they surreptitiously snuggled up between our inner thighs. You could tell where they had spent some time under the cover and where from looking at the rat tracks and the small black shit pellets they had left behind. The summers were even worse. Maybe they had a birth surge or something in the spring, but by the time the humid Chicago summer settled in on us, the rats were prowling the alleys in packs, herds. I actually hated to go to bed because these watermelon, rind-fed, barbecue bone, fattened rodents became so ebullient, so effervescently active, they would run across my body in the middle of the night playing tag or whatever. One of my most realistic nightmares was of a large gray rat resting on my chest, resting himself from his strenuous play on my cot, his beady eyes challenging me to question his right to be resting on my chest. I didn't know how long he stayed there, but I felt the weight of his body on my chest ever since then. We were jammed together on Washburn Avenue like rats in a cage, which often gave birth to outrageous behavior. Husbands beat their wives. Wives raised their abusive spouses' throats in their sleep. Boys and girls were whipped with razor straps for childish behavior. Feuds between family clans ebbed and flowed. Only the fittest could survive. The men who came down to St. Mary's gambling house Friday to Sunday mornings, when she took time to garb herself in her Reverend A.T. Tilley Sunrise Baptist Church usherette deaconess uniform, hoping to break the bank, were also guilty of as much negative behavior as they could get away with on her turf. All right, Mew Papa. I done told you in Frenchy to stop using all that bad language up in here. You got children sleeping in the front room. The whole scene was semi-bipolar. Below the negativity, they were feeling so deep and loving, so warm and sympathetic. It seemed like I was being bathed in a kind of love that no one else in America could ever experience or imagine. Son, you want a piece of this sweet potato pie I just made? Yes, ma'am, Miss Rabbit, I sure do. And thank you, ma'am. Thousands of moments like that counterattack the other stuff. All right, little nigga, give me your money or your life. Going to jail or going to the big house, to the joint, to the slam was considered an element of our rite of passage. I can remember dudes calling across crowded street to each other. Hey, nigga, has you done your time? Yet? My daddy, recently released, tried to prep me for a brighter future. Go ahead on. Do what you gonna do, but don't get caught. The penitentiary is hard on the motherfucker's soul. All right, that's enough of that. I've edited myself around huge mounds of blood, sweat, tears, emotional scenes so deep that it might even cause unfeeling white folks to understand what I've written, what we feel. I don't know why it's up in here. We wound up living in the Alma Hotel for 4 consecutive years. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was sort of a strange record. After years of being shuttled from Aunt Mary's basement to Uncle Eddie's basement on the north side, where I ran out in the street between 2 parked cars, smack dab into the passenger side of a chauffeur-driven limo, I lived. The car was badly dented. Back to Aunt Mary's basement for a few months, and then on to Aunt Mamie's basement. Basements were cheaper. To somewhere else. We, Mama and Sister, moved from place to place so fast it seemed like a blurred memory. Y'all don't live in this room no more. Your mama told me to give you this. This is y'all new address. The Alma Hotel. I was 15. I had graduated from Forestville Grammar School, attending on a fake address, and now, incredibly, I was going to go to high school. You may have to walk to school if you want to go. I started paying closer attention to my nomadic life. I would definitely have to have a permanent address to go to high school. The rules demanded that. I don't know how she did it, but come school time, I was a registered freshie at DuSable High School with 3800 South Lake Park Avenue as my address. We were still moving from place to place in all of the slum ghettos in the city, but the Alma Hotel, which wasn't really a hotel anymore, more like a semi-brothel would be a more honest description, became our home. The Alma Hotel had once been a fashionable 4-story building. It was somewhere else when it was something else when we occupied our 2 rooms on the 3rd floor with 2 windows facing a big vacant lot. The 1st floor was strictly for the whole soldiers who marched in and out 24/7 with their tricks. Ditto for the second floor. The action was bombastic on the weekends. The third floor was half army and half civilian. The fourth floor was reserved for off-duty whole soldiers and reclining pimp officers. Heroin was the drug of choice for the dope fiends who roamed the dark, carpeted passageways, nodding off in the toilets. Everything was everything, to quote the late, great Donny Hathaway. I ran errands for the soldiers on the fourth floor, and during the course of my time around them, learned many of their sexual tricks. They be thinking they got it in, but they ain't got nothing in nowhere. They just be pumping jism between my thighs. Big Al, the pimp with the suits that shine in the night, took me under his wing for a few months. He ran his game down to me. You got a whole bunch of games run with the potential candidates for your stable. You got some emotionally dehydrated women out there who are just searching for a drink. You become her drink. Do you know what I'm saying? You got some women who are searching for their daddies. You become their daddy. And you charge them for your time. You got some weak sisters who can't refuse your demands. You got an endless supply of whole soldiers out there who just dying to go onto the battlefield for you. All you have to do is learn how to motivate them. I flunked Pimping 101 because I could not force myself to ask some female to go sell her body for me. Big Al always looked at me in a snarky way after he discovered my weakness. But he never righteously condemned me. All he said in passing at one point was, any woman can be a hoe, but it takes a special kind of man to be a pimp. Well, that's the way he thought about it. Mama's right. I didn't have to walk DuSable out. If I had a few coins, I had to make a decision. Should I spend the money on bus fare or save it for a bag of potato chips and Coca-Cola lunch? I always chose to walk because I knew I would be able to steal something to eat en route to school, or I could steal something at school. I was stealing quite a bit right in through here. I practically ravaged the purses and pocketbooks of the luscious young ladies of DuSable. I hope there's a statute of limitations. If they had laid it down anywhere near me, I had it. If they left their lockers open and turned their backs, I was in it. Couple this with the pills of pork chops and loony meat that I was slipping into my pan from the market that I visited on a rotational basis, I could say that I was feeding my family pretty well. We became almost affluent when I created the love letter writing business. Here's exactly what happened. I'm strolling through the upper level of the school with a buddy looking for something to rip off. My buddy has other ideas. I sure would like some of them panties. Huh? His other thoughts, ideas, jarred me from my larcenous reveries. He nodded with his chin at this gorgeous creature swaying past us on the other side of the hallway. Truth be told, they had some of the most gorgeous girl women at DuSable than any other school in the city. They were gorgeous, sexy, and approachable. It was a great plus to know how to write a love note. I don't really know how that came about. I think it may have had something to do with the time, the era. Nat King Cole was romancing our minds with Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, men have named you. You're so like the lady with the mystic smile. Sarah Vaughan was embracing us with the lyricism. Billy, Bird, Prez, Miles, Diaz, doo-wop, and bebop ran parallel races. I actually went to parties where people were reading Gwendolyn books, Langston Hughes, and do bop she bam. In any case, like I said, it was a plus to know how to write a love note. Girls at DuSable expect to be hit on by notes. That was the way it was. Why don't you write Miss Gorgeous a note? I asked my buddy. I don't know how to write none of that stuff. I looked at him. He was serious. Willie could have been the first Lou Rawls, but he could barely spell his own name. Maybe he was dyslexic or something. I butted in. Oh man, I'll write the note for you. You will? What did I say? When? Tomorrow. There, I had cornered myself, nothing to do but go to work. I started putting some sort of outline together as I walked back to the Alma that evening. I knew Miss Gorgeous as a familiar stranger. Everybody knew everybody. One way or another at DuSable. How many were we? 2,000? A small village. We knew most of the people in our class sets. I was entering my sophomore year when my love letter writing really took off. The letter that I wrote for Willie got him an audition that he flunked. Look, I got to give it to you, man. That note you wrote for me really impressed her, but I didn't. I mean, she wanted to go to the Peps to see the latest movies and shit like that. And I had to tell her I couldn't handle that kind of program. So that's where we left it. That was it for him, the beginning for me. I made a path to the boutique love letter writing business. It went like this. I charged $1 for an ordinary, $2 for a special, $3 for an exotique, and $4 for an outrageous.
Oh.
They had to rewrite what I wrote in their own handwriting and let me see it before they passed it to her, whoever it was going to be. I glared around for competitors. I didn't have any. I had a clear field till I was in my third year, my junior year, when an unexpected emotional earthquake messed me up. I'll get to that. Now here are examples of the 4 genres I wrote in when my love letter ballpoint was hot, and only for carefully screened clients. This is an ordinary. The one they paid $1 for. My name is Jason Smack. I'm the guy sitting 2 desks behind you in English 201, Miss Pace's class. I cannot begin to tell you how much time I spend thinking of how wonderful it would be to have a desk that faced you every day. This note does not come out of the blue off the top of my head. I've thought about a half dozen ways I wanted to approach you, to ask you if you would like to go to the lunchroom with me, or spend a few minutes just walking around the school, just talking. To be honest, what all this comes down to is that I would like to get to know you, to know something about your hopes, your dreams, your future. I hope you don't think that I'm being too brash, too full of myself to even think that someone as wonderful as you would give me a play. But as my mother is always saying, nothing beats a failure but a try. I'm trying. Please feel free to let me know what you think of this note when I see you after school, after class tomorrow. Your friendly admirer, Jason Smack. My literary ego was jacked sky high when I saw my boy Jay as Miss Cutie Pie, what was her name, strolling down the hall 2 days later. My mojo was working. Here's an example of the special, the $2 special. Dear Shirley Adams, this has gone on far enough, me trying to hold my feelings about you in check. As you know, there comes a time in every man's life when he has to push the macho mask off to one side and let his feelings show, to be real. Can you dig where I'm coming from? I know you are a popular young lady because I see all the attention people, especially the males, be giving you. But I noticed you don't seem to have a big head. You remain calm. You remain beautiful. I like that. I like that very much. I've spent a few days trying to figure out the best way I could bring myself into your inner circle to have you understand that I see you as a special girl. So you see, there it is. I'm revealing my feelings about you. You may reject my attention, but I hope you won't. I hope you will be available to go to Shake Baby's birthday party with me this coming Saturday. Shake Baby made it a point to tell all of us who had special invitation to bring our special ladies. I'm asking you to go to Shake Baby's party with me as my special lady. I would also like to say, Shake Baby or no Shake Baby, that I always think of you as a special lady. Very affectionately yours, Gary C. Scott. More egotistical ratings. Hey, I was doing this. Got to the point where I was willing to guarantee success to her or refund the fee paid. This is the exotic coming up. Come here, the exotic coming right up. Let me take a sip of this cold coffee.
All right.
$3 for the exotic.
All right.
My darling Mamie. When I say your name out loud, it's make me think of balmy tropical breezes, gently waving palm trees, body warm ocean waves. When I see you sway through the hallway on your way to your locker or wherever, I take lascivious notice of the rhythmic motion of your hips, the proud way you hold your head as you glance at the people all around you. I've often heard people talk about what it felt like to be hypnotized, fascinated by forces beyond their control. I feel that way about you. I know we've had only 3 or 4 conversations standing beside our lockers, but each time we talk made me feel a deeper fascination. It's as though I want to kiss your lips as each word escaped your mouth. I cannot remember what we talked about, but I do recall the shape of your beautiful lips made as the words came out. Please don't think that it is only your lips that I'm interested in. I'm interested in all of you. And I want you to consider my offer to become interested in me also. Let's talk about it very soon. Affectionately, forever. Leroy Wilson. This is my outrageous. This was the outrageous. $4. $4. Look, baby, I have to get up between them sweet honey pot thighs. That's what my passion streak whispers into my brain every time I see you. You didn't have no panties on yesterday. You know how I could tell? Well, I'm not going to tell you. I have to show you. It's really a sin and a shame. I have to put my desire for you into writing. I know every time you look into my eyes that you know my freak is on for you. You can tell that from the way I'm looking at you. My freak is on for you. Why don't you just be honest and admit that you want the same thing I want? That orgasmic thrill that's going to blow both of our minds. What I want you to do when you get through reading this is come up to me, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, and whisper in my left ear, Bobby, I want to give you something this evening. That's all you got to say. I'll take care of the place and the time. Love and more love, Bobby Franklin. No bullshit. I was working it until that unexpected emotional earthquake messed me all up that I spoke of earlier. There I was, strolling through the first floor hallway, minding my own business, contract to do. 3 outrageous is in my notebook. I'm a businessman. I looked into these pop bottle bottom eyeglasses mounted on this beautiful sculptured broad nose. A black girl, I mean a real black girl, not one of those February month, Negro History Month black girls. She was small, couldn't have been taller than 5 feet, and was perfectly proportioned. No big old booty, the big old titties, nothing like that. Everything was exactly the size and shape it was supposed to be. I stopped and stared at her. I stopped and stared at her. I just stopped and stared at her. Mm-hmm. She rewarded me with a quick, friendly smile. Mm-hmm. That was it. Secretly, to tell the honest to God truth, I think I had a lot of internal smirking going on about these brothers who were buying love letters from me. I thought it was kind of funny until I saw Zola strolling through the hall. Who was she? Where did she come from? I felt I had to get to know. I felt like I wanted her. This was a totally new feeling for me. I spent the whole day in a sort of a daze trying to figure out how to get to her. Ugh. It only took one visit to the office with a chocolate milkshake for nosy you, this wide-figured office clerk, to find out that this heartstopper was named Zola Gregg. And she was from someplace called Hackensack, New Jersey, just transferred in. People be coming from everywhere. My days after that became a kind of solar blur. I would spot her in the AKA formation, and then she would be gone off to math or gym or wherever. She was elusive. I would position myself in one place and she would disappear from another place, into another place. I was still doing letters for my clients, but I was definitely thinking of a master letter that I wanted to write. I didn't know what it was that drew me to her. Well, let me qualify that. I definitely wanted to get into them panties. You dig? I definitely wanted to get into them panties. Mm-hmm. That was the teenager in me. But then there were other thoughts brewing. I could see her as my wife, the mother of our two children, Taiwo and Kahindi. Mm-hmm. I had read enough stuff about African names to know that we probably would have twins that we would call Taiwo and Kahindi. Meanwhile, with all of this dripping drama blundering through my skull, I was still doing business. All right, Eddie, who do you want this addressed to? Let's call her Lady Mysterious. Lady's Mysterious, huh? That sounds pretty mysterious to me. Outrageous? No, this is exotic. Let's make it an exotic. Exotic. That sounds just right for Lady Mysterious. $20, please. All right, the brother wanted his exotic addressed to Lady Mysterious, so be it. I didn't give a shit. I was focused on my agenda with Zola. No doubt in my mind that she would have to dig me. I didn't have any outsized markers. I wasn't tall, dark, and handsome, but I had been nurtured in the pimp tradition of, your pussy can't be good unless my dick says it is. That's what Big Al told me. I was anxious to put some avant-garde concepts to work. Meanwhile, she was not the doctor then, she was teacher Margaret Burroughs art class. It's supposed to be one of the classes you needed on your car to graduate, so I was in Teacher Burroughs' art class. Let me chop this off right away to say something about Teacher Burroughs, later to be known as Dr. Margaret Burroughs. And aside, Teacher Burroughs, later to be known as Dr. Margaret G. Burroughs, was one of the most Afrocentric art educators in the Chicago public school system. No doubt in my mind that some racist white bureaucrat made a major league mistake when he allowed her to teach at DuSable. DuSable, a high school in ghetto slum-bound Chicago, a place that was supposed to be doomed by its name alone. DuSable? A high school named after a Negro? What kind of nonsense is this? My guess is that they located their mistake too late. I won't even try to identify all the Afrocentrists who plunged into the DuSable Ocean. They came up to us loaded with Langston Hughes shells, Zora Neale Hurston guns, different ways of looking at ourselves. They put the Renaissance series, or whatever the latest TV series wants to call Anglo-America's attempt to co-opt African-American art story. No good, white folks. You got to start with Dr. Margaret Burroughs. Dr. B established the first museum of African-American history in the U.S. Why is that a problem for people to see, to hear, to understand? Well, one of the reasons why she was such a bitch. She bitched left, center, and right. and eventually got what she most bitched for, the DuSable Museum of African American History. Her bitching was so powerful that we don't even have a PBS series or any other shout out for the identification of what she did. Now, that's what I call real bitching. Teacher Burroughs, a seasoned collector of illicit student papers, leaned over behind my furiously scribbling ballpoint to gently pluck a half-written exotic off of my desk. Damn. A hip lady, she know how to get she know how to get beyond a would-be cheater and corner him at the pass. That's what she did to me. The bell rang, signaling her class change. Don't go, I want to talk with you. That's what she said as my classmate filed out, throwing little darts at my predicament. Got your ass, huh? She didn't waste a minute. She sat at her desk and gestured for me to sit at the desk in front of her. She sat there looking dead in my face for a long time, before she leaned over and started writing. She spoke to me after she finished writing. I've written a note to my friend Margaret Peterson, who has a creative writing class on Friday, 6 p.m. at the Baptist Institute. You know what it is? Yes, ma'am, 51st and South Parkway, right across from the park. Good. Go there with this note on Friday at 6. If you don't attend the class, I will fail you, and you will have to make up art 101 to graduate. There it was, threat and blackmail all rolled into one. The sister could be cold. She handed me the pages. Remember, 3 pages for the exotic, $3, and her comment. I teach our black people to appreciate our unique place in this society. I'm not a writing instructor, but I do read a lot, and I think what you've written here is very fine, excellent. I stood there in front of her desk on the verge of crying. Teacher Burroughs had certified my stuff. My first thought was, I got to jack up my prices.
Of course.
I have to admit, I was shocked, really shocked, to find that Mrs. Peterson, Teacher Burroughs' friend, was a white woman. An ugly white woman with mousy blonde hair, bunny rabbit upper front, gypsy clothes on her back, and just like Teacher Burroughs, a cold sister. Let's understand something clearly. You're in this class because Margaret has asked me to admit you. I'm not after quantity. I insist on quality, and that's that. Imagine a buck-teeth white woman saying something like that at the Baptist Institute on 51st and South Parkway at 6 o'clock on Friday in 1953. Sister was bold. There were 20 people in the class when I was admitted, 5 of us and 15 of them. 6 weeks later, there were 10 of them and 2 of us. I felt compelled to explain why I dropped out to Teacher Burroughs. I just can't keep up. It was winter time. Boy, why didn't you tell me you were walking from 30th and Lake Park to get to school? I didn't know what to say. I've been walking, jogging for almost 3 years. So what's the big deal? Now, I discovered the warm side of Teacher Burroughs. Well, because of extenuating circumstances, I'm not going to fail you. But when we break for the summer vacation, I'm going to give you a ream of paper, and I want you to come back in September with a novel. Or else I'm going to have to fail you. Are we clear on this? Yes, ma'am. I never knew what to say to Teacher Burroughs other than, yes, ma'am. Meanwhile, I had a hot hand going with my love letter business. Like I said, following Teacher Burroughs' endorsement, news traveled fast. I had upped each of my categories by $1. I didn't think a whole lot about this brother who requested an exotique without any nastiness in it. What do you call nasty, my brother? You know, all that stuff referring to sex. So what's wrong with that? Well, this is going to a Christian girl. I'm a Christian boy. Yeah, fuck it. Shit. I didn't have any qualms about writing a straight up, I want you baby Christian appeal for the brother. Meanwhile, I'm still semi-stalking Solar Gray. Who you want to address this non-nasty letter too, my brother. I reached the point of being sarcastic toward all levels of blackness. I wanted to address to Christian lady, no problem. Christian lady, here we come. No pun intended. I did the Christian lady letter as efficiently as I ever done any other love letter. The difference, I think, is that my brief attendance in Margaret Buckteeth Peterson's class had taught me the reasons for an emphasis on character profile, motivation, clear definitions, and a certain sense of style. Style, an almost undefinable way of writing about things in a certain way. Try to imagine Doris Day trying to sing any song that Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, Carmen McRae, Ella, Nina, Bessie, Aretha, or Mahalia, Oshun, or whatever comes out of that gospel tradition. Please remember, the stuff I'm stuffing you with happened 60-some years ago, back in ancient times. Recall that the love letters the underground master wrote for his clients were copied per his demand in the client's own handwriting. This created some interesting problems later when some of the recipients of those love letters outed the whole thing. Do you really think that I thought Melvin wrote that letter to me back then? My husband couldn't even spell half the words in that letter. I stopped writing the love letters when one of the letters backfired on me. This letter was the exotic that Teacher Burroughs caught being directed at Lady Mysterious. The letter was going from my friend Eddie to Solar Gray. I didn't know that then. I didn't really connect things till I saw Eddie moonwalking through the first floor hall with her with my heart stroke to be this wonderful creature that I wanted in my life so desperately. I damn near fainted when I saw them together. I had hooked Eddie up with my love. And it was obvious from the way they were looking at each other that a fire had been lit. I didn't cry, truth be told. Well, I didn't cry right then, but I did cry. I went into a wounded shell. I had to turn down requests for my work. Exotic? Where you at, brother? I tried to write a few letters, but I just couldn't put my heart in the effort. My heart was broken. I stayed in a depressed state for a long time, about 2 months. A lifetime for a 15-year-old. I just couldn't see any way out of the blues till I decided to unburden myself to Teacher Burroughs. She was unusually sympathetic. She even offered me a way to deal with my heartbreak. The summer break is 2 weeks away. I'm going to give you a ream of paper. I want you to write about what it feels like to have your heart broken. Let me see what you've written when we come back in September. Yes, ma'am. I think her advice and all that paper was a release agent for me. Please remember, this happened 60-some years ago, back in ancient times. A number of things started changing my head as I started writing that summer. Number one, I stopped stealing so much. After I had a whole week of nightmares featuring me and 2 buffed up convicts in a small cell with a jar of Vaseline. Come September, I presented Teacher Burroughs with a hand-scribbled manuscript, my first novel, the story of a young man's heartbreak. Since that time, I've written a number of other novels, none of them about heartbreak. If I had written more novels about heartbreak since that time, I would have a whole library shelf stuffed with self-indulgence and morbid thoughts. That ain't what's happening. And that's my tribute to Dr. Burroughs on this Tuesday afternoon. I hope everybody stays safe and well, and that we will get through the evening without being shot to death by some idiot with an AR-15.
Yes.